There's no my water over there, no their water over here. The water is the water.
The theme of this Black Ecologies Field School is around the Black and Indigenous histories of the Eno River.
The water over here is the water over there. The water is the water is the water. The water is the water in the now times. The water is the water in the future that remains. Within the now times is the future that remains. The water is the water is the water.
We nation share geography with the state of North Carolina. Here first. Okay. So, and this I did from memory. Coharie, Eastern Band of Cherokee, Waccamaw-Siouan, Heron, Saponi, Palawa-Saponi, the Lumbee, Okanichi Band Saponi Nation, the Tuscarora, and the Choanoke Nation. We are all here. And so, please don't ever believe that there are no indigenous people east of the Mississippi River. Because growing up in Hillsborough, growing up in this area was all about the Revolutionary War. One of the things my father did was he was determined. So UNC Research Lab of Archaeology did a dig on the Eno River in Hillsborough, and they found a village site. It was my father's, that was his legacy, to recreate it in Hillsborough, North Carolina, up further, so that people would know that we have always been here. We were agrarian. I was digging in my purse because I stuck this in at the last minute. This is red Tutelo corn, right? Our language is Tutelo, right? So we had corn. We were not migratory like the people in the Northwest, right? It's like, nope, or the Midwest. We didn't follow the buffalo. We were agrarian. But we landed on this island in the middle of what is now the Roanoke, and not Roanoke, it's Roanoke. Roanoke, and it means shiny shell, right? We were on this island and we controlled trade with the British. How many of you have heard of Bacon's Rebellion? Okay. He tried to annihilate my people because he was jealous of the relationship we had with the crown, right? And so we ran. And we found some of our kin people and we stayed with them, right? It was about murder to get rid of us, the Indian problem, right? So how my people ended up here in Pleasant Grove, which is not far from here, was Katie and Bartimus and John Jefferies. So John Jefferies, my dad is John Jefferies. My granddaddy was John Jefferies. No, his daddy was Bartimus Goliath Jefferies. But his daddy was John, right? And so it is about understanding what it means to be in relationship. So I don't separate ecology from anything else. There's no such separation. This is part of my ecosystem, right? It's the winged, the two-legged, the ones that swim, the ones that crawl, the standing silent nation, and the stone.
Eno River stretches across the Piedmont. It goes through a few counties. It hits this body of water called Falls Lake. And Falls Lake, as you can imagine, is a human-made body of water, right? Through a damming process that happened mid-century here to supply our drinking water. And one of the things to know, right? So this is this space is a point of contention, right, for a lot of folks, particularly folks who are descendants of the Stagville plantation, which we'll visit later today. The Stagville plantation, Nia is actually working on a historical or memorial for the descendants of Stagville and Durham right now, was at its peak the largest plantation in the state of North Carolina, in Durham County. And you should also know that Durham is a very, very new formation, right? So when Stagville existed as a plantation, the counties here, the relevant counties here, were Orange and Chatham County. And what happened as emancipation happened, legal emancipation happened, is that a lot of the land, including Stagville and some parts of Orange County and Chatham County, were carved out into a new county called Durham. I'm setting this up, and we'll talk to Georie Bryant, who's a descendant of Stagville, who may say more to you about this later. I'm setting this up because to think about the ecologies of this space as intersected with the political geographies of the place, I think really matters in terms of memory, right? So a lot of, people say that Stagville is in Durham, but Durham was not a thing, right? When Stagville existed as Stagville.
I wanted to ground us and locate us inside of our body. I wanted to prepare our nervous systems, but I also wanted to introduce the power of our voice, our lungs, our throat, as I introduce you again to one of my allies, Mullein. Ribascum thapsus, a plant of Mediterranean origin that has been naturalized and utilized all over the United States. I am Asia. And what you should know about me and what you should know about yourself is that my maternal lineage is from Liberia, that my paternal lineage is from Nigeria. I lived in one of the highest altitudes that you can find here in the United States. Think about what that means for the physiology of blackness. What it means is that my ancestors were adapted for a climate that is the exact opposite of the climate that I occupy now. What that means is that as we increase in elevation, the pressure of oxygen decreases, forcing us to struggle more to breathe. And also, like many other West Africans, I have small, little red blood cells that may not be sickled, but that are adapted to become, to deliver immunity, right, to the species of pests that are endemic to my homeland. I pass out at altitude, but I live in Colorado. And so the medicine that I bring with you is informed by that embodied experience of having to learn how to breathe when there is no air for me. And this is a medicine that adds to our diaspora, right? And so I'm bringing you information that may be different from the places where you know, because I am a mermaid that lives in the mountains. Our ability to adapt is the difference between life and death. And so, this is some medicine. This medicine was gathered with so much love and so much effort. Today, I am going to have you taste some of the medicine. I'm going to lead you through some activities. And we're going to really walk with Mullein in a deeper way, in a way that is embodied, but in a way that will inform how you address your lungs moving forward, how you address things like anemia moving forward, and hopefully how you address the art of root work. The work of extracting minerals from the plants is from a school of thinking called nutritional herbology, where we can understand the mineral and vitamin makeup of our herbs in order to cause healing on that level, and not just on the level of the phytochemistry, the phytonutrients. So this is a mineral-rich brew, such as calcium, such as chromium and cobalt, magnesium, niacin, phosphorus, potassium, silicon.
Wow.
So when we are participating in activities that are sympathetic, it's not neutral. It costs your body to be stressed. This is the highest plant source of iron that I have found. There's over 60 milligrams of iron in a cup. And to understand what that means is that a menstruating female body person needs about 32 milligrams a day.
We are gonna try to avoid big waves like this, hypothetically, or like just realistically, they're gonna come by.
I mean, it's nothing.
Yeah, and
It
you're
really
with the
is.
pro.
It really is nothing.
You're with
It's
the
nothing
pro.
difficult. You're not gonna flip.
Yeah.
You're really not.
Okay.
You know, it's
If somebody start by poisoning us, they end by poisoning themselves because the water is the water. We say you play the water, you play yourself because the water is the water.
North Carolina's history, and the reason why we call it a Tower Hill State is because of water. Right? So the primary thing which we started our industry was back then, and it's still to this day, is timber. Okay? And longleaf pine grows primarily in wetlands. Loblolly, which most of us see, does not. It actually is called old farm pine. It needs to be in a pretty much already farm till land, lay it to rest for some time, and then you get a pine forest pop up. And very quickly, it grows a foot a year, it doesn't take long. That's why it's, lumber is still our primary industry. It's because you can grow this particular type of pulpwood in a very short amount of time. And so it would be enslaved people that would go in and timber that wood, board it out, they would build, they created everything. There was nothing purchased. Enslaved people had to create everything themselves. And they did not come here and learn that knowledge, they came here with that knowledge, okay? They know how to make everything themselves. There were certain things that had to be adapted. Well, these people, as Jamal Torre, a good friend of mine from the Gullah Geechee community, said, they were already indigenous. They were indigenous when they got here. They were indigenous to somewhere else. Right? And so what our culture was during that particular time was an indigenous culture. But being enslaved, your relationship to the material world is very different. Right? Your relationship is about the exploitation and the extraction of material from an environmental world, right, for a particular usage. Whether you relate to it in that way or not, doesn't really matter. Right? Remember, they had to make everything. Clothes, nails. I mean, some stuff that we take for granted, we think like this stuff comes made. They made everything. They made everything. So you would have a blacksmith. George Holden was a blacksmith. Right? This brother right here, he was a blacksmith. Every hinge, every nail, every axle, everything that you need is metal. The blacksmith had to make. Right? So you think about everything you use is made of metal on a day-to-day life. Right? That person had to make that.
Right. So post-emancipation, as this place we call Durham was being formed, a lot of communities, including communities in Hayti, right, were formed, right, from people who were descended from Stagville, Hardscrabble Plantation, and other plantations around this area, right? So Durham actually, if the way that I see it, Durham has like a white urban core, a historic kind of white or urban core that's like a legal municipality, and it has had several like, and it's surrounded by like several Black communities, right, that are like historic descendants communities that came in later migrations, a lot of which were not even annexed into the city of Durham until much later, right? Hayti was one of them. Hayti was its own kind of community, and then it was annexed into Durham, and then subsequently bifurcated by the highway.
The water remembers that the water is the water. Even when they try to make us forget the water is the water will remind us the water is the water.
Members of this community are still fighting for their freedom. They're still fighting for their liberation in different ways, but they are. And so we want to allow ourselves to connect with the stories, connect with our own ancestry. We also want to deepen our ability to care through that connection. And then once we care, we're called into action to do something. So hopefully you feel that today.
Earthseed is named after the Octavia book, Octavia Butler, ideas from Parable of the Sower. So we took that idea and sort of planted ourselves here. There are 7 members now. Hopefully we're expanding that idea. Part of what the restructuring is about, so that more people can be here. Currently we have 2 households on the land, a farm office on the land, a therapeutic practice on the land, a vermicomposting shed here, and Ide's textile shed is there. This is Tierra Negra Farm, so we have many, so not only do people live here, this is an incubator for all kinds of other businesses, land-based type businesses. So, you know, anytime you come here, something's going on, somebody's doing something, somebody's conducting some sort of operation that requires land and space and time and whatever. So you heard Mr. Vivette's at the confluence of the Eno River. This is her people's land, and not in any sort of like metaphorical sense. This is that literally lived here, right? So that's why that relationship is like that. Also, you heard Georie talk about Stagville. This is the border of Stagville. Like literally over there on the other side of the road is the border of Stagville. So we're in all the, there's nowhere that there wasn't a plantation, basically. Just assume that it was everywhere. So this was part of a larger, this area was not productive for farming, which is why we were able to buy it, honestly, and why it's developed in the way that it is. If you see trees growing in North Carolina, that land is not productive for commercial agriculture. It's not because we love trees. Trees are a better bet from an economic standpoint. So when you see trees growing, anywhere you see a tree growing, anywhere you see a forest, that land is not productive for row crop agriculture.
Listen, the same sweat that drenched Grandma Nellie's back in the fields once was and is. The same pearlescent tears gliding down your face as you laughed once was and is. The same river your daddy, before he was your daddy, got baptized in once was and is. The same fog still lingering over that battlefield. The water is the water is the water. This is not to mean all our vulnerabilities are the same. No, this is not to mean our vulnerabilities are theirs are ours, or that we all need water in the same way, but to remind the water is the water. And to remind that your violence can become another's vulnerability. And to remind the contingency you impose can become the contingency you oppose. And to remind, vex the water, eventually you'll hex yourself. The water is the now times. The water is the future that remains. The water can grieve you. The water can grieve you. You better believe the water. Even when we make the water move heavy with lead and oil and dross. Even when the water washes over us with loss, the water is the water. The water knows violence, yes. The water knows care too. The water knows that suffering ain't the only thing that cultivates virtue. The water is the water. The water knows that you can be better by doing better. The water is the water. The water can cleanse you. The water can miss you. The water can mold you. The water can erode you. The water can preserve you in its belly. The water can hold you up. The water can hold you down. Oh yes, the water can hold you though. The water can hold you. Oh yes, the water can hold you. The water is the water.